Hello there, and welcome to the Sleep Porch. Tonight, we are stepping into the world of coffee, a drink that begins as a bright fruit on a living plant and ends as a scent that can change a whole room. In that small cup, there is body, climate, and culture. There is chemistry you can taste, and history you can still feel in the way people gather, talk, and think. If this content interests you, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your support motivates us to continue creating more meaningful videos. Coffee has traveled across oceans and centuries. It has shaped mornings, meetings, and midnight pages. It can be clear and citrusy or deep and chocolatey. And those differences begin long before the kettle ever warms. Soil, altitude, rain, and time all leave fingerprints. Even the water you brew with becomes part of the story. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, there's nothing you need to do but relax. Let your shoulders soften and allow your eyes to grow heavy as we wander through the science and wonder of coffee. Let's begin. Coffee is a seed, and we roast it to unlock aroma. Inside a coffee cherry, the part we prize is the plant seed. It is built to survive. It carries stored food for a future sprout, wrapped in protective layers like parchment and silvery skin. When we roast that seed, we are not just making it brown. We are altering its structure so trapped flavors can finally be released. Heat removes moisture. Pressure builds inside tiny cells. The seed expands and becomes more fragile, which is why it can be ground. Sugars and proteins begin changing into new flavor notes that were not present in the raw seed. Then, when you grind it and add hot water, those newly opened pathways allow aroma to rise quickly. It is a small part of a plant, yet it can fill an entire kitchen. Most coffee comes from two main species, Arabica and Robusta. It is like having two lead instruments in a global orchestra, each with its own voice and character. One is usually grown for complexity and fragrance. The other is typically grown for strength and hardiness. They can be served on their own, blended together, or used for different brewing styles. This matters because species shape what farmers can grow, where they can grow it, and what risks they face in any given year. It also shapes what drinkers expect in a cup. Some coffees feel light and layered. Others feel thick and direct. When you see these names on a bag, you are seeing a shortcut to a much larger story. It is a story of genetics, weather, and economics. It is also a story of taste traditions that differ by region. A cafe menu can look modern. Underneath, it often rests on this simple two-species foundation. Arabica usually tastes sweeter, and it carries less caffeine. This is one reason it became the darling of cafes that chase nuance. Many Arabica coffees lean toward fruit florals or caramel, and those flavors can feel vivid without needing much sugar. The plant is also fussy. It prefers steadier conditions, and it can be more vulnerable when disease pressure rises. That makes Arabica a crop of both beauty and risk. Farmers often treat it like a garden rather than a factory. They may focus on careful picking and thoughtful processing because small mistakes can blur the very qualities people pay for. For drinkers, Arabica can be an invitation to slow down and notice details. You might catch a hint of berry one day, then a honey note the next, even from the same bag as it rests and opens up. Less caffeine does not mean less impact.
It means the cup can feel graceful and still deeply alive. Robusta tends to taste bolder and it resists pests better.
Robusta has a reputation for power. He can bring a heavier body, deeper bitterness, and a punchier profile that stands up to milk, sugar, and ice. In many parts of the world, that strength is not a flaw, it is the point. Robusta can also be a lifeline for farmers facing harsh conditions. It generally tolerates heat and humidity better than Arabica, and it can shrug off some of the threats that would devastate more delicate plants. That resilience shapes markets and habits. It helps explain why Robusta plays such a large role in instant coffee and in certain espresso traditions where intensity is prized. It also explains why Robusta is at the center of modern experiments. Producers are finding ways to improve how it is grown and processed, aiming for cups that keep the strength while gaining sweetness and clarity. When people dismiss Robusta, they miss a story of survival, adaptation, and changing taste. The flat white grew famous, and milk texture is the key. The flat white rose to global fame because it highlights a particular kind of milk craft. It is built around espresso and finely textured steamed milk with a thinner foam layer than many other cafe drinks. The goal is a smooth, paint-like texture that blends with espresso rather than sitting on top as a separate cap. That texture changes flavor. When milk is stretched and steamed properly, it tastes sweeter and feels silkier, and it helps espresso taste rounded without disappearing. The drink also emphasizes balance in size. Many flat whites are served smaller than a typical latte in some countries, which keeps the espresso presence clear and prevents the drink from becoming mostly milk. The result is a coffee that feels strong yet not aggressive, and creamy yet not heavy. It became popular because it sits in a sweet spot that many people want, especially when they are moving from black coffee toward milk drinks. It is a lesson that technique can create a whole new category of comfort. Each cherry usually holds 2 beans pressed face to face. That pairing is the reason a coffee bean has a flatter side and a curved side. Inside the cherry, the 2 seeds grow in a snug little chamber, each one shaping the other as they mature. Between them sits a crease that later becomes a famous hiding place for chaff and oils during roasting. This geometry matters in the real world. It affects how evenly heat moves through the bean, and it influences how the bean fractures when it is ground. It even changes how water flows through a bed of coffee, because flat faces stack and pack differently than rounded ones. There is also a tactile surprise. When you split a roasted bean, you can see the history of its growth written into that central line. A fruit that looks simple from the outside is secretly a tiny 2-seed cradle engineered for a future plant. A pea berry is 1 rounded seed, not the usual pair. Sometimes a coffee cherry forms only 1 seed, and that single seed grows plump and round because it has the whole space to itself. Farmers often separate these by sorting, since their shape changes how they roast. A rounded seed exposes heat more evenly on all sides, which can shift the pace of development in the roaster. Some roasters love them for this reason, and some treat them as a curiosity rather than a guarantee of quality. The real fascination is that it is a reminder of how variable nature can be. 2 seeds is the common plan, yet the plant occasionally writes a different version. In the cup, a peblot can taste bright and focused. The results depend on the same factors that shape any coffee, like ripeness and care. Even so, the idea is charming. 1 cherry, 1 seed, 1 chance to become something distinct.
Coffee processing begins within hours. All flavors can turn harsh. Once coffee cherries are picked, they keep living. Sugars continue to shift.
Enzymes keep working, and microbes in the air start moving in. If the fruit sits too long in a heap, heat can build inside the pile and the skin can split. That is when sour, boozy, or muddy flavors can appear before anyone has done anything wrong at the roaster. Good producers treat harvest day like a race against time. Cherries are carried quickly to sorting tables, where unripe or damaged fruit can be removed. Then the chosen method begins, and the clock finally feels under control. This urgency is easy to forget when coffee arrives in a neat bag. Yet the earliest hours after picking can decide whether a cup tastes clean and sweet, or whether it carries a rough edge that no brewing skill can hide. The best coffee is often the result of fast, calm choreography. Cappuccino foam insulates heat, keeping the drink warmer longer. Foam is not only decoration, it is physics you can drink. A thick layer of milk foam holds tiny pockets of air, and air is a poor conductor of heat. That means the foam slows heat loss from the coffee beneath it, helping the drink stay warm longer. It also changes how the drink hits your senses. The first sip passes through a softer, airy layer, and that can make the coffee feel gentler and more rounded, even when the espresso underneath is intense. Foam also carries aroma in a special way. Aromatic compounds can cling to the bubbles, so the smell can feel more concentrated right at the surface. This is why a cappuccino can feel so fragrant when you lift the cup. The craft lies in milk texture. Well-made microfoam feels glossy and integrated, not stiff or dry. When it is right, it gives structure to the drink like a warm blanket that also delivers scent. Café lait and latte differ because proportions and foam change. These two drinks can look similar, yet their balance tells a different story. Café au lait often uses brewed coffee as the base, then adds heated milk, which keeps the coffee flavor broad and open. A latte typically starts with espresso, then adds more milk, often with a layer of microfoam on top. That espresso base makes the drink taste more concentrated, even when the cup is large, because espresso carries intensity in a small volume. Foam matters too. A thicker foam layer changes how aroma reaches your nose, and it changes the first sip texture, making it feel lighter and airier before the liquid follows. The difference becomes obvious when you order them side by side. One feels like coffee made creamy. The other feels like espresso stretched into a smooth, structured drink. These are not just names, they are ratios, textures, and expectations. And they show how coffee culture can turn a simple pairing of coffee and milk into multiple distinct experiences. Espresso uses pressure to extract fast, creating creamer from trapped gases. Espresso is brewed in seconds, yet it tastes concentrated because pressure forces water through finely ground coffee. That push changes what gets pulled into the cup. Oils emulsify into the liquid, which adds weight and a silky feel. Meanwhile, carbon dioxide trapped in the roasted coffee meets hot water and bursts out. Under pressure, that gas forms tiny bubbles that become crema, a foam that can hold aromas at the surface. Crema is not just decoration. It is a sign of fresh roast and proper extraction, although it can also be influenced by the coffee itself and the grinder. Espresso is also unforgiving. Small shifts in grind size, dose, or tamp can swing the taste from sharp to muddy. When it is right, the result is layered. You might notice sweetness, bitterness, and brightness arriving in sequence. It is a quick brew with a long finish. Decaf still contains caffeine,
because removal is never perfect. Decaffeination is not a magic switch. It is a careful separation problem. Caffeine sits among many flavorful compounds that roasters want to keep.
So the challenge is to remove one thing without stripping everything else. Different methods solve this in different ways. Some use water to draw out caffeine, then pass that water through filters that capture the caffeine while leaving many flavor molecules behind. Others use carbon dioxide under pressure, which can act like a selective solvent. There are also approaches that use food-safe solvents applied with strict controls. Even when done well, a small amount of caffeine remains. That is why decaf can still feel like coffee in the body, especially for people who are sensitive. It also explains why decaf is not always the same. Processing choices can shape taste. A great decaf is not a compromise. It is proof of skill and careful chemistry. The same bean can taste widely different depending on roast and water. Coffee is not a single flavor hiding inside a bean. It is a set of possibilities that your brewing choices reveal. Roast level changes which notes stand forward. A lighter roast might keep brighter fruit and floral hints. A darker roast can emphasize chocolate, toast, and smoke. Then water steps in as a quiet partner that decides what dissolves well. Brewing with water that lacks minerals can make the cup seem thin even when the coffee is good. Brewing with very mineral-heavy water can flatten sparkle and push harshness. Temperature and contact time matter too. Yet roast and water often explain the biggest surprises. This is why two people can buy the same bag and describe two different drinks. It is not imagination. It is extraction. Coffee is a seed that responds to heat and dissolves into water. Change the heat, change the water, you change the story. That is part of the wonder. Each cherry usually holds two beans pressed face to face. That pairing is the reason a coffee bean has a flatter side and a curved side. Inside the cherry, the two seeds grow in a snug little chamber, each one shaping the other as they mature. Between them lies a crease that later becomes a well-known hiding place for chaff and oils during roasting. This shape matters in practice. It affects how evenly heat travels through the bean and influences how it breaks when ground. It even changes how water moves through a bed of coffee because flat surfaces stack and pack differently than rounded ones. There is also a tactile surprise. When you split a roasted bean, you can see the history of its growth traced along that central line. A fruit that appears simple from the outside is secretly a tiny two-seed cradle designed for a future plant. A pea berry is a single, rounded seed instead of the usual pair. Sometimes a coffee cherry forms only one seed, and that lone seed grows full and round because it has the entire space to itself. Farmers often separate these through sorting, since their shape alters how they roast. A rounded seed is exposed to heat more evenly on all sides, which can change the pace of development in the roaster. Some roasters value them for this reason, while others see them as a curiosity rather than a guarantee of quality. The real fascination is that it is a reminder of how variable nature can be. Two seeds is the common plan, yet the plant occasionally writes a different version. In the cup, a pea berry lot can taste bright and focused. The results depend on the same factors that shape any coffee, like ripeness and care. Even so, the idea is charming. One cherry, one seed, one chance to become something distinct. Coffee processing begins within hours, or flavors can turn harsh. Once coffee cherries are picked,
They keep living. Sugars continue to shift, enzymes keep working, and microbes in the air start moving in. If the fruit sits too long in a heap, heat can build inside the pile, and the skin can split.
That is when sour, boozy, or muddy flavors can appear before anyone has done anything wrong at the roaster. Good producers treat harvest day like a race against time. Cherries are carried quickly to sorting tables, where unripe or damaged fruit can be removed. Then the chosen method begins, and the clock finally feels under control. This urgency is easy to forget when coffee arrives in a neat bag. Yet the earliest hours after picking can decide whether a cup tastes clean and sweet, or whether it carries a rough edge that no brewing skill can hide. The best coffee is often the result of fast, calm choreography. Caffeine evolved as a plant defense, and insects can't stand it. For a coffee plant, caffeine is not a morning pick-me-up. It is closer to a chemical shield. In the wild, leaves and seeds face constant threats from hungry insects. Caffeine can disrupt insect nerves and behavior, which makes feeding less successful. It can also discourage larvae from growing well on the plant. In some studies, even small doses change how insects learn and navigate, which can matter when a pest is trying to return to the same food source. Coffee plants do not keep caffeine in only one place. Different tissues can hold different amounts, which suggests a layered defense that changes with risk. There is another twist. When caffeine washes into nearby soil, it may slow the germination of competing plants. One molecule can protect the plant from nibblers above ground and rivals below it. A coffee plant can live decades and fruit year after year. Coffee is often treated like a quick commodity, yet the plant itself can be a long-lived companion. With good care, a single tree can keep producing for many years. It does not give its best harvest forever, so farmers prune and manage it to balance age with energy. New shoots are guided, old branches are cut back. The goal is to keep the plant productive without exhausting it. Coffee also teaches patience. A young plant needs time before it yields a serious crop. So early years are an investment rather than a reward. Then comes the rhythm of seasons. Blossoms appear, cherries set, and months pass before picking. That slow calendar ties coffee to place. Weather patterns and altitude shape timing, and a farm's work follows the plant's pace. Your cup begins with years of steady growth. Coffee's aroma comes from hundreds of compounds formed during roasting. Green coffee smells faint and grassy because much of its future fragrance has not been created yet. During roasting, heat builds a library of volatile molecules that can lift from the bean and reach your nose. Some read as toasted nuts, others suggest cocoa, spice, citrus peel, or flowers. What is remarkable is how many of these notes are not added, they are made. As temperature rises, natural sugars, amino acids, and acids react into new aromatic families. Time and heat decide which ones dominate. After roasting, many of these compounds are delicate. They fade with oxygen, light, and long storage. That is why a freshly opened bag can smell so alive. Grinding magnifies the effect by exposing new surfaces. Aroma is not an extra feature. It is a main channel of flavor. Much of what you taste is actually what you smell carried on warm air. Spent grounds still contain caffeine, which can deter some garden pests. Even after brewing, coffee grounds are not chemically empty. Some caffeine can remain, and caffeine is a biologically active compound for many small creatures. In certain situations, that leftover caffeine can discourage pests, which is why some gardeners sprinkle grounds around plants or add them to compost with pest management in mind. The effect is not universal, and it does not replace good gardening practices. Different pests respond differently, and weather can wash compounds away. Still, the idea is fascinating. A plant compound that evolved to defend a coffee tree can continue to play a defensive role even after it has passed through your kitchen. It is also a lesson in how strong caffeine is as a signal in nature. We think of it as a human stimulant, yet in the plant world, it is also a message that says, "Do not eat me." When you reuse grounds outside, you are extending that message into a new setting. Coffee aroma can linger on fabrics because oils cling to fibers. Coffee's smell feels airy, but part of it rides on oils that can stick to surfaces. When you spill coffee on clothing, or when you carry beans in a bag, aromatic oils can settle into fabric fibers and hold on. Heat makes this more noticeable. A warm room or a warm jacket can release those aromas again, which is why a coffee smell can seem to return later. Different fabrics hold scent differently, since fibers vary in how they trap oils and how easily they release them during washing. This is also why coffee equipment needs caning. Oils that cling to filters, grinders, and carves can go stale and create off-aroma mass over time. On fabric, lingering coffee can be pleasant or unwanted depending on the moment. Either way, it reveals a truth about scent. Aroma is not only floating molecules, it is also material. It sticks, it persists, and it can carry a memory of a morning long after the cup is gone. Single origin means traceable region, not automatically better quality. It tells you where the coffee came from in a meaningful way, like a country, a region, a cooperative, or sometimes a single farm. That traceability can be exciting because it connects a cup to a real landscape and a real harvest, with weather and soil that shaped the seed. It can also make the coffee easier to talk about because the flavors can feel like a signature of place. Yet, a label alone does not promise a beautiful cup. A coffee can be perfectly traceable and still be poorly picked, poorly processed, or poorly stored. Another coffee might be a blend and taste far more balanced. The value of single origin is the story and the specificity. It is an invitation to taste difference, to compare seasons, and to notice how one place can speak through aroma and sweetness. It is a map, not a trophy. Grind size controls speed because water takes the easiest paths. When water meets coffee grounds, it behaves like any traveler. It looks for openings. If the grounds are coarse, there are wide corridors between particles. So water moves quickly and pulls out less before it passes through. If the grounds are finer, the corridors narrow, flow slows, and extraction climbs fast. This is why one small twist of a grinder can turn a balanced cup into something sour and thin, or bitter and heavy. Grind size is also about evenness. A brew bed with mixed particle sizes creates mixed extraction, and that can taste confusing rather than complex. Different brew methods demand different speeds. A French press needs time with a coarser grind. Espresso needs resistance from a fine grind. Every time you change grind, you are changing contact time without touching a clock. It is the steering wheel of brewing, and it is more powerful than most people guess. Finer grinds extract faster, but they can also over-extract easily. Small particles have more surface area exposed to water, so flavor compounds leave them quickly. That is the advantage. It is also the trap. With a fine grind, the early part of extraction can be sweet and vivid. Then it can slide into harshness if water keeps pulling. Those later compounds can taste woody, drying, and sharp. Finer grinds can also slow flow so much that the brew stalls, which tempts people to use hotter water or longer times that can push bitterness even further. Espresso shows this drama most clearly. A shot can look perfect, then taste rough, because the coffee was just a little too fine for that dose and that machine. The best brewers treat fine grinding like lighting a match. It brings energy fast, it needs control, and it rewards attention. When it is right, the cup feels concentrated and sweet. When it is wrong, it feels like the coffee is scolding you. Burr grinders beat blades because they produce fewer dusty fines. A blade grinder works like a tiny propeller, smashing beans into a mix of chunks and powder. That mix is why the same brew can taste both sour and bitter at once. The small dust extracts quickly and turns harsh, while the larger pieces lag behind and contribute a thin, underdeveloped sourness. Burr grinders work differently. They crush beans between two surfaces set to a precise distance, aiming for particles that are far more uniform. Uniformity brings clarity. The brew becomes easier to predict and easier to repeat. It also gives you real control when you change settings, since the grinder responds in a consistent way. This is why cafes invest in heavy burr grinders, and why home coffee changes dramatically when people upgrade. The difference is not luxury, it is physics. A burr grinder turns coffee from a gamble into a craft you can actually steer. Brewing temperature matters because cooler water extracts less sweetness. Hot water is a powerful solvent, and heat helps it dissolve the sugars and aromatic compounds that make coffee taste satisfying. When water is too cruel, extraction can store before sweetness fully appears, leaving a cup that feels sour, thin, or strangely salty. Temperature also shapes which compounds dominate. Cooler brewing can emphasize sharper acids and leave heavier flavors behind. That can be pleasant in some styles, yet it often reads as incomplete when you expect a rounded cup. Very hot water brings its own risks, since it can pull harshness if grind and time are not well matched. The point is that temperature is not a background setting. It is a major lever. It decides how quickly flavor moves from solid grounds into liquid. This matters even more in cold environments where kettles and brewers lose heat fast. Two people can follow the same recipe and still get different results because their brew temperature drifted. When coffee tastes mysteriously weak, temperature is often the hidden answer. Some people feel jittery fast because sensitivity varies widely. Jitters are not a character flaw, they are biology. Caffeine sensitivity differs for many reasons, including genetics, stress levels, sleep debt, and how much caffeine you usually consume. A person who rarely drinks coffee can feel a quick surge from a small cup, while a daily drinker might feel almost nothing from the same dose. Sensitivity also shows up in the body, not just the mind. Some people notice a racing heart. Others notice shaky hands. Some feel anxious even if the day was calm before the coffee. How you drink matters too. Coffee on an empty stomach can feel stronger, and sweet coffee can encourage faster drinking, which compresses the dose into a short time. The useful lesson is that caffeine is personal. You can treat it like a dial, not a challenge. Smaller servings, slower sipping, and earlier timing can keep the benefits while avoiding the buzz that feels unpleasant. Coffee can stimulate stomach acid in some people, especially on an empty stomach. For some bodies, the first sip acts like a signal flare to the digestive system. The stomach gets the message, "Get ready, food might be coming." Acid production can rise, and that can feel like warmth, fluttering, or discomfort if there is nothing else in the stomach to buffer it. This effect varies widely. Some people feel nothing at all, while others notice it quickly with certain roasts or stronger brews. Darker roasts can feel smoother to some drinkers, yet the real difference is often the whole routine. Food, hydration, stress, and sleep can change sensitivity from day to day. The practical takeaway is simple and human. Coffee is powerful, and the stomach is responsive. If coffee ever feels like it lambs too sharply, pairing it with breakfast, reducing strength, or sipping more slowly can change the experience without giving up the ritual. Coffee spread globally through trade, religion, politics, and pure habit. Coffee began as a local plant and became a global ritual because people carried it along the paths they already traveled. It moved with merchants and sailors. It moved with pilgrims and scholars. It moved with empires that wanted valuable crops and dependable taxes. Ports became gateways for beans, stories, and brewing styles. In some places, coffee was welcomed as an alternative to alcohol for social life. In other places, leaders worried about gatherings and tried to control it. The drink kept winning because it fit human schedules. It paired well with work, conversation, and long nights of study. As demand grew, plantations reshaped landscapes and labor systems which tied coffee to painful chapters of history as well as to everyday comfort. Even the word for coffee shifted as it crossed languages. A simple seed became a global habit that still links farms, shipping lanes, city cafes, and home kitchens in one long chain. Coffee houses helped shape modern public debate, business, and news culture. Before cafes became a casual stop, they were often hubs where strangers sat close and talked. A good coffee house offered more than a drink. It offered light, warmth, and a seat in a room full of information. In cities like London, coffee houses became places where merchants compared shipping reports and prices. Writers and philosophers argued over pamphlets and rumors. News spread fast because people read aloud and reacted in public. Some coffee houses even became linked to specific trades, which helped burly business networks form. Over time, this culture influenced how societies discuss ideas outside churches and courts. It created a space that was neither home nor government. It was public, but it was personal. You can still feel the echo today. When people meet for coffee to talk, plan, negotiate, or debate, they are stepping into an old pattern. The cup is small. The social effect can be enormous. Your brain notices coffee scent before the first sip hits. Smell is a fast sense. When coffee aroma rises, molecules drift into your nose and bind to receptors that send signals straight toward brain regions involved in memory and emotion. That is why the scent can feel like a place, a season, or a person. It can also prime expectation. Before you taste anything, your brain begins predicting what is coming. Saliva begins to rise. Attention becomes sharper. The body gets ready for a familiar ritual. For many people, this happens even with a mug that contains no caffeine at all. the scent alone can set off a learned response. That is one reason coffee feels comforting. It isn't just chemistry in the cup, it is also a pattern in the mind. Roasting and grinding intensify aroma because they release more volatile compounds into the air. So the first sip is not really the beginning. The experience starts earlier. It begins with breath, memory, and expectation. Coffee cherries often mature on the same branch at different times. That single fact reshapes the entire harvest. On one twig, there may be a deep red cherry that is ready, a yellowing one that needs a few more days, and a hard green one that is still weeks away. If a farm strips a branch all at once, those unripe cherries can add a sharp, grassy edge. Overripe ones can drift toward a dull, fermented taste. This is why careful farms pick in passes. They return again and again, choosing only what is ready. It is slow, expensive work, and it turns ripeness into a flavor choice. You can taste the result. A sweetness that feels clean, and as fruit notes that seem intentional rather than chaotic. Even the same field can ripen unevenly, because sunlight and airflow differ from tree to tree. Coffee is not harvested like a uniform crop. It is gathered like a series of small decisions. Coffee plants prefer highlands because cooler nights slow cherry growth. A slower pace can be a gift. When nights cool down, the plant is not racing through development. It has more time to build sugars and complex flavors inside each cherry. Think of it like a longer simmer instead of a quick boil. The result can be a cup that feels more detailed, with a brightness that seems precise rather than loud. Highlands also tend to bring bigger datoid swings, which can stress the plant in a productive way. It responds by thickening cherry tissues and developing denser seeds. Those denser seeds can roast differently, and they often reward careful profiles with vivid aromas. Of course, highlands are not easy. Steep terrain makes farming harder and transport slower. Weather can turn quickly. Yet across many coffee regions, mountains became famous for a reason. Elevation is not a guarantee of quality, but it can set the stage for coffee that tastes like it had time to become itself. Altitude can sharpen acidity by changing how sugars develop. In coffee, acidity is not about sourness. It is about a bright, lively edge that can remind you of citrus, berries, or crisp apples. Altitude can encourage that sparkle because cooler conditions slow how the cherry matures. With more time, sugars and acids can balance in a way that feels energetic rather than harsh. This is why some high-grown coffees seem to lift off the tongue. The flavors arrive with clarity and then drift into sweetness. Altitude also changes sunlight intensity and cloud patterns, which can influence how the plant photosynthesizes through a season. Even within one region, a difference of a few hundred meters can shift the cup from round and chocolatey to bright and food-forward. That is why altitude is printed like a badge on some bags. It is not just a statistic. It is a clue about the pace of growth and about the kind of brightness you might taste when you take that first sip. Shade-grown coffee can support biodiversity when forests are preserved. A coffee farm can be a monoculture field, or it can be a layered habitat with trees above and below. In a well-managed shade system, taller trees protect soil from harsh sun, reduce erosion, and offer homes for birds and insects. Those birds can help control pests. Leaf litter can feed the ground. The farm becomes less like a factory and more like an ecosystem. This matters for taste too, because healthier soils and steadier microclimates can support consistent ripening. Shade systems are not automatically perfect. If shade is too dense, productivity can drop and diseases can spread. The best results come from balance and from local knowledge. Still, when shade-grown coffee is done with real forest stewardship, it can protect corridors of life in regions where habitat is under pressure. Your morning drink can connect to canopy trees, migrating birds, and the quiet work of soil organisms. It can be agriculture that leaves room for the wild. Coffee roots dislike waterlogged soil, so drainage matters hugely. Coffee can handle rain, but it cannot handle drowning. When soil stays saturated, roots struggle to breathe and the plant weakens from below. That weakness can show up as yellowing leaves, poor flowering, and cherries that never fully develop. Good drainage is like good sleep. You do not notice it when it works, but you feel it when it fails. Farmers shape fields to help water move. They use contour planting on slopes, and they choose soils that do not turn into a sealed puddle after every storm. In fatter areas, they may build raised beds or channels to carry excess water away. Drainage also affects flavor. Stressed roots can lead to uneven cherry growth, which can translate into cups that feel muddled. When you taste a coffee that seems clean and steady, there is often quiet engineering behind it. The romance of coffee begins underground. It begins with air spaces between soil grains and with roots that can breathe. Coffee flowers can bloom suddenly, often after rainfall triggers them. For much of the year, the plant can look calm, even ordinary. Then rain arrives, and the next morning, a farm can seem transformed. Coffee blossoms open and bursts, covering branches with small white flowers that can smell sweet and fresh. That bloom is not just pretty, it sets the schedule for everything that follows. The timing of flowering influences when cherries will be ready, and it can create multiple waves of ripeness if rains come in pulses. Farmers watch the weather with the focus of stage managers. A rain at the right moment can synchronize flowering and make harvest more predictable. A scattered pattern can stretch harvest and raise costs. Flowering also signals how sensitive coffee is to climate. When rainfall shifts, bloom timing can shift with it. In the cup, you may never think about flowers, yet those brief blossoms are the first chapter of the harvest story. They are the moment when a year's work becomes visible almost overnight. One plant can show 2 harvest seasons, depending on local climate. Near the equator, the usual 4-season rhythm does not always apply. Instead, rainfall patterns can create more than one cycle of flowering and fruiting in a year. In some regions, that means 2 distinct harvest periods. It can also mean a long harvest with a clear peak, then a second, smaller wave months later. This double rhythm shapes local life. Labor needs rise and fall twice. Mills and drying patios can be busy, then quiet, then busy again. For roasters and buyers, it can mean fresh coffee arriving in different windows, which changes how supply and taste evolve through the year. It also influences what fresh crop means in different countries. A coffee that is new in one place may be older in another, simply because harvest calendars are staggered. This is part of coffee's global complexity. Even if two farms grow the same type of coffee, climate can give them different clocks. The plant follows rain, and people follow the plant. Washed processing removes fruit pearly, highlighting clarity and acidity. In this method, the fruit is separated from the seed soon after picking, and the sticky layer around the seed is loosened with water and time. What remains is coffee that tends to taste clean, structured, and easy to read. Many people describe it as a cup where flavors feel separated, like instruments you can pick out in a song. That character can be especially striking in coffees with citrus or floral notes, because there is less dried fruit influence clinging to the seed during drying. Washed lots also reveal mistakes quickly. If picking is sloppy, defects stand out. If fermentation is uncontrolled, the cup can taste thin or sharp. When done well, washed coffee can feel like a window into place. You might notice crisp brightness, then sweetness, then a finish that stays tidy. It is not louder coffee, it is clearer coffee, and that can feel like magic when you taste it for the first time. Natural processing dries the whole cherry, often boosting fruity notes. Here, the seed stays inside the fruit while it dries, like a letter sealed in a scented envelope. As the cherry slowly loses water, sugars and flavors in the pop can influence what happens inside the seed. Many naturals taste jammy, winey, or vividly tropical, and the aroma can be so expressive that it surprises people who think coffee is only bitter. This style can also be risky, which is part of its drama. If drying is uneven, some cherries may rot, while others dry too fast, and that can lead to unpleasant, stale flavors. Producers work hard to prevent that by turning cherries, spreading them in thin layers, and protecting them from rain. When it goes right, natural coffee feels like a different category of drink. It can taste like fruit and chocolate had a conversation. It can also carry a heavier body that lingers, as if the coffee remembers the cherry it came from. Honey processing keeps sticky mucilage, balancing sweetness and brightness. Honey processing is named for texture, not flavor additives. After the skin is removed, a tacky layer of fruit remains clinging to the seed, and that layer dries with it. Producers can leave a little or a lot, which changes both the work and the result. With more mucilage, drying takes longer, and the risk of unevenness rises. With less, the coffee can behave closer to a washed lot. When done well, honey-processed coffee often lands in a satisfying middle space. It can have the cleanliness of a washed cup, yet it also carries a rounded sweetness that feels soft on the tongue. This method is also a lesson in attention. The seed is coated, and that coating can ferment if it stays too wet. So farmers turn beds and monitor moisture, like chefs watching a glaze. The reward can be a cup that tastes lively, then melts into sweetness without feeling heavy or wild. Fermentation can shape flavor, because microbes transform sugars into acids. Fermentation sounds dramatic, but it is simply life doing chemistry. Yeasts and bacteria consume sugars and produce new compounds, including acids and aromatic molecules that can change how coffee tastes. The process can happen in tanks in open channels, or even inside a drying cherry. Temperature, time, and cleanliness all steer the outcome. Done thoughtfully, fermentation can add complexity, like a brighter sparkle, a deeper sweetness, or a fragrance that feels more floral. It can also help remove sticky layers during washed processing, which makes drying more even. What makes it fascinating is that it is partly visible and partly invisible. You can measure temperature, you can smell the tank, and you can watch bubbles rise. Yet the most important transformations are tiny and hidden. Two farms can use the same steps and still get different results because local microbes differ. In that sense, fermentation is a fingerprint of place. It is a quiet partnership between farmer and microscopic world, and it can turn good coffee into unforgettable coffee. Too much fermentation creates off flavors, even if roasting is perfect. When fermentation runs too long, the cup can shift from lively to unpleasant. Instead of clean fruit notes, you might taste sharp vinegar, cheesy funk, or a dull, muddy heaviness that crowds everything else out. This is why skilled producers treat fermentation like bread baking. You cannot simply set a timer and walk away. You have to watch conditions and respond. Heat speeds the process. Cool slows it. A tank that is filled too deeply can behave very differently from a shallow one. Even how ripe the cherries are affects how quickly sugars are consumed. Once coffee crosses a certain line, roasting cannot save it. Heat can soften rough edges, but it cannot remove compounds that were formed earlier in the process. In the worst cases, those flavors become even stronger after roasting because aroma carries them straight to your senses. This is a difficult truth, yet it is also part of what makes exceptional coffee so impressive. A great cup is not a matter of luck. It is the result of control, restraint, and precise timing. The best producers know when to stop, even when the process still appears active. Drying speed matters because uneven drying can trap unwanted flavors. Drying is not only about reaching a safe moisture level. It is about doing so evenly, so the seed does not crack under stress or develop sour pockets of fermentation. If the surface dries too quickly, it can form a hard shell that slows moisture from escaping the center. Then, the outside feels ready while the inside still holds water. That mismatch can lead to instability during storage, and it can create strange flavors that show up later as staleness or a rough finish. On the other hand, drying too slowly can invite mold and over-fermentation. Producers solve this with craft and patience. They spread coffee in thin layers. They rake it like careful gardeners. They move it under cover when clouds roll in. They sometimes finish drying in raised beds that let air circulate from below. Drying is where sunlight, wind, and human attention meet. It is easy to think the hard work ends after harvest. For coffee, drying is often where quality is either protected or lost. Storage humidity can dull flavor even before roasting starts. Coffee is hygroscopic, which means it trades moisture with the air around it. If green coffee sits in a humid space, it can absorb water, and that changes how it will roast later. A roaster might notice the coffee behaving unpredictably, with heat moving differently through the seed. Even before roasting, humidity can encourage mold growth or musty odor, especially if the coffee is stored too warm. If the air is too dry, the beans can lose moisture and become brittle, which also alters roasting behavior and can reduce sweetness. Good storage is a quiet science. Producers and importers use protective packaging, stable temperatures, and careful warehouses so the coffee arrives tasting like its best self. This is one reason 2 bags from the same farm can taste different months apart. The journey does not end when the coffee is dried. It continues through rooms and containers where air, time, and moisture keep writing the story. Green coffee is stable longer, but it still ages and fades. Before roasting, coffee is called green because it is unroasted seed. It travels better in this form, yet time still leaves a mark. Aromas slowly soften, and the cup can lose sparkle even if nothing smells obviously wrong. Some coffees drift toward papery notes, while others simply become quieter and less sweet. Heat, oxygen, and humidity speed that change, which is why storage is treated like protection rather than convenience. Many producers and importers use dense bags and careful warehouses to keep the seed's chemistry steady. There is also a seasonal rhythm. Freshly harvested coffee can taste lively and structured, while older lots may feel flatter and less distinct. Roasters learn to adjust heat and timing to compensate, though there are limits to what technique can restore. In a way, green coffee is like a paused story. It waits, but it does not stand still. Roasting triggers may mar reactions, building nutty and caramel notes. When heat rises in the roaster, sugars and amino acids begin reacting in a cascade that creates new aromas. This is called the Maillard reaction, and it is one of the main reasons roasted coffee smells like comfort. It can produce notes that suggest toast, nuts, cocoa, or baked bread. The magic is that these scents are built during roasting, not carried in as ingredients. The pace matters. If the heat climbs too fast, the outside can darken while the inside lags behind. If it climbs too slowly, flavors can taste baked and dull. Roasters steer this turning point by listening, watching color, and tracking smell as it shifts from grassy to sweet to rich. The same batch can move from light and crisp to warm and rounded with only small changes in timing. That is why roasting is both craft and chemistry. It turns a mild seed into something that smells like a whole cafe. Roasting also drives caramelization, changing sugars into deeper flavors. Caramelization is what happens when sugars break down under heat and rebuild into darker, more complex-tasting compounds. In coffee, it helps create that familiar sweetness that can feel like toffee or brown butter. It also deepens color and adds a fuller, richer aroma that starts arriving before the roast looks very dark. This is different from the Maillard reaction, since it focuses more directly on sugars themselves. The balance between these processes shapes how a coffee tastes, and it can be surprisingly sensitive. Push caramelization too far, and sweetness can tip into bitterness. Stop too early, and the cup may taste thin, even if it is bright. Roasters think about this the way a cook thinks about browning onions. There is a moment when sweetness blooms. There is another moment when it turns sharp. The best roasts land in that delicious window where depth and clarity meet. First crack is steam pressure breaking cells, not burning. In the roaster, there is a moment when the beans begin to make sharp, popping sounds. That sound is first crack, and it is a physical event. Water inside the bean turns to steam as the bean heats. Pressure builds, and the cell structure finally gives way. The bean expands, and its surface becomes more porous and brittle. This matters because it changes how heat moves and how flavor develops from that point forward. Many roasters treat first crack like a doorway. Before it, the bean is still building the foundation of sweetness and aroma. After it, darker and more intense flavors can develop more quickly. It is also a moment you can hear, which makes roasting feel alive and responsive. You are not guessing at a timer. You are listening to a material change. That is why first crack is such a teaching tool. It turns roasting from mystery into something you can sense in real time. Dark roasts taste smoky because more compounds break down. As roasting continues past the stage where sweetness is prominent,
the chemistry shifts. Some flavor compounds begin to fracture into simpler molecules, and the surface oils can become more noticeable. This is where smoky, charred, or bittersweet notes can dominate.
The cap can feel heavier and more uniform, which many people love because it tastes bold and familiar. It also changes aroma. Instead of fruit and flowers, you may smell toast, spice, and something like campfire. Dark roasting can hide defects in the green coffee, but it can also hide the coffee's original character. That trade-off is part of its appeal. The taste becomes about roast craft rather than origin nuance. Dark roasts also tend to dissolve readily, so extraction can feel easier in many home brewers. When people say a coffee tastes strong, they often mean it tastes dark. It is intensity built by heat, and it has its own devoted culture. Light roasts keep origin character because less of it is roasted away. With lighter roasting, the goal is restraint. The roaster stops earlier, so the coffee can keep more of what it carried from the farm, like fruit tones, florals, and a crisp kind of brightness. These coffees can taste surprisingly vivid. Some cups hint at citrus, others suggest stone fruit or teeke delicacy. This style also asks more of the brewer. Light roasts are denser and less soluble, so they can punish a careless grind or a too cool brew. When brewed well, they can feel like tasting geography. You notice differences between regions and varieties more clearly because the roast is not taking center stage. Light roasting is not about being weak. It is about being specific. It invites you to listen closely to detail rather than volume. For many drinkers, the first great light roast is a revelation. It breaks the idea that coffee must taste bitter to taste like coffee. It can taste bright, sweet, and still deeply satisfying. Roasted beans release carbon dioxide for days, changing extraction behavior. After roasting, coffee is full of trapped carbon dioxide created by heat. Over time, that gas escapes slowly and unevenly through tiny pathways in the bean. This has a real effect on brewing. Too much gas can interfere with water contact, which can lead to uneven extraction and a cup that feels sharp or hollow. As the days pass, brewing often becomes more stable. Flavors can open up and sweetness can become easier to find. You can notice this in the bloom of a pour-over, where fresh coffee puffs and foams as gas rushes out. Espresso is especially sensitive because pressure and fine grinding amplify everything. Roasters often package coffee with one-way valves so gas can escape without letting oxygen rush in. That little valve is a quiet acknowledgement of a living process. Roasting does not end when the heat stops. The beans keep changing as they breathe out, and your best cup may arrive a few days later. Fresh beans can resist water because trapped gas blocks wetting. When very fresh coffee meets hot water, the grounds can act like they are trying to float away from the brew. That is carbon dioxide pushing back. Gas trapped in the grind creates tiny pockets that water struggles to penetrate, and that can make extraction uneven. Some particles get soaked and give up flavor quickly, while others stay dry in the middle and contribute little. Brewers develop simple solutions that feel almost ceremonial. Pour-over drinkers often use a short pre-wetting step called a bloom, which allows gas to escape and helps water reach more surfaces. Immersion brewers notice the same effect when crusts rise and bubble. This resistance is also why fresh coffee can taste surprising. It smells incredible, yet it can brew poorly if you treat it like an older batch. In a way, the coffee is still holding its breath from roasting. Let it exhale. Then it becomes more willing to share its flavors.
Resting after roast can improve espresso by calming excess gas. Espresso is a high-pressure brew, and it magnifies small variables. When beans are too fresh, extra carbon dioxide can cause channeling.
Water finds weak spots in the puck, races through them, and leaves other areas under-extracted. The result can taste sharp, thin, or oddly unbalanced, even with good technique. Resting helps because it reduces the gas load and makes flow more predictable. Many baristas learn the personality of each coffee. Some taste best after a short rest. Others come alive after a longer pause. During this time, aroma can become clearer and sweetness can feel easier to reach. This is not a rule that replaces skill, but it is a powerful lever. It also creates anticipation. A coffee can smell amazing on day 1, then pull its best shot on day 5. You are not only brewing, you are meeting the coffee at the moment it wants to be brewed. Roasting profiles are recipes tuned to bean density and moisture. Two coffees can look similar in the green, yet behave like different materials once heat touches them. A dense, high-grown coffee can absorb heat slowly and demand a steadier approach. A softer, lower-density coffee can heat quickly and risk tipping into harshness if pushed. Moisture content matters too, since wetter beans need more energy early to drive off water, and drier beans can race ahead. Roasters respond with profiles which are planned changes in heat and airflow through time. The profile is not just about reaching a final color. It is about shaping how the coffee develops along the way. That is why roasting looks like cooking. You adjust for the ingredient. You choose a pace. You aim for balance. Great roasters keep notes and repeat what works, though they also respond to each harvest since crops change year to year. In the end, the profile is a bridge. It carries what the farm grew into the flavors your cup will reveal. Even tiny fines can add bitterness by extracting too quickly. Fines are the smallest particles in a grind, and they behave like flavor accelerators. Because they are so small, water can strip them fast, often pulling bitter and drying compounds early in the brew. Fines also migrate in pour-over brewing. They can settle into the filter and clog it, which slows the flow and pushes extraction even higher. That can make a cup taste heavy, dull, and overly intense. Even when your recipe seems correct, different beans create different amounts of fines, especially when roasted darker or when the bean structure is fragile. Different grinders create different fines too, which is one reason two grinders set to the same size can taste nothing alike. Brewers manage fines with technique. They adjust pouring to avoid stirring them into a paste. They sometimes sift for certain brew styles. It is a reminder that coffee is not just flavor. It is a physical material, and tiny particles can steer the whole outcome. Water chemistry changes taste because minerals affect solubility and balance. Coffee is mostly water, so the water's character becomes part of the drink's character. Minerals like calcium and magnesium help pull certain flavorful compounds out of the grounds, which can increase sweetness and body. The wrong mix can do the opposite. Some water makes coffee taste flat, as if the flavors cannot lift off the tongue. Other water makes coffee taste harsh, as if bitterness has been turned up. Water chemistry also affects aroma. The same beans can smell more vivid when extraction is balanced, because the brew carries those volatile compounds more effectively to your senses. This is why coffee can taste different from one city to another, even in the same cafe chain. It is also why many serious cafes filter and remineralize their water. They are not trying to be fancy, they are trying to be consistent. Water is not a neutral background. It is an ingredient with its own invisible personality, and it can make coffee either shine or sulk. Too soft water can taste flat because extraction lacks structure. Very low mineral water can struggle to pull enough from coffee grounds, especially the compounds that give a cup its satisfying sweetness and roundness. The result can feel empty, even when the coffee smells promising. It can taste like the notes are present but thin, as if the cup has no backbone. People sometimes respond by grinding finer or brewing longer, but that can bring out bitterness without delivering the missing fullness. This is a frustrating kind of bad cup, because it does not announce itself with an obvious flaw. It simply feels underwhelming. Soft water also affects espresso, where extraction needs the right chemistry to build body and balance. Many baristas describe it as chasing their tail. The coffee never settles into a repeatable sweet spot. The surprising lesson is that a little mineral content can be a good thing. It helps flavors dissolve in a way that feels complete. Coffee is a solution, and soft water can make that solution too sparse to satisfy. Too hard water can mute brightness by binding flavorful acids. Water with very high mineral content can grab onto certain compounds in coffee, especially acids that contribute to a lively, sparkling taste. Instead of a bright, clear cup, you can get something duller and heavier, as if the top notes have been padded down. Hard water can also create a chalky mouthfeel, and it can leave scale in kettles and espresso machines that changes temperature and flow over time. That mechanical impact becomes a flavor impact, since brewing depends on stable heat and pressure. People often blame the beans when this happens, yet the real culprit can be the tap. A coffee that should taste like citrus or berries may come across as muted cocoa and bitterness simply because the water is dragging the profile toward the ground. Cafes take water seriously for this reason. They tune it to preserve brightness while still extracting sweetness. Good water lets a coffee sing. Overly hard water can make it sound like it is singing through a thick wall. A bloom releases trapped gas, helping water contact more coffee. When you pour a small amount of water over fresh grounds, you often see a puffing, bubbling rise. That is carbon dioxide escaping as the grounds first get wet. Without a bloom, gas pockets can keep water from reaching some surfaces, which means parts of the coffee never truly participate in extraction. Blooming is a simple pause that improves fairness. It gives the brew a chance to become evenly wet, so later pours can extract more consistently. The bloom also tells you a story. A lively bloom often signals fresher roasting or fresher grinding, while a quiet bloom can suggest older coffee or a very dark roast that behaves differently. Some brewers swerve or stir during bloom to help wet all particles, though too much agitation can bring fines into trouble. Blooming is not a ritual for its own sake. It is a practical step that makes the bed behave more predictably. It turns the first moments of brewing into a preparation phase, like opening a door before walking through. Paper filters trap oils, producing a cleaner cup and mouthfeel. Coffee contains flavorful oils that can add richness, yet those same oils can also make a cup feel heavy or muddy. Paper filters catch many of them, along with tiny particles that would otherwise slip into the drink. The result is often clearer and brighter, with distinct flavors that feel easier to identify.
This is one reason pour-over coffee can taste so articulate even when brewed from the same beans as a French press. Paper also influences aroma. By holding back some heavier compounds, it can emphasize lighter notes that drift up from the cup.
Different papers make different results, too. Some add little of their own taste if rinsed well. Others can introduce a faint papery note if they are neglected. Filter thickness influences flow rate, which then shapes extraction. So a simple sheet of paper becomes a quiet piece of engineering. It affects texture, clarity, and balance. And it can turn the same coffee into a very different experience without changing anything else. Metal filters allow oils to pass, giving coffee a heavier body. A metal filter works more like a wide gate than a fine net. It lets natural coffee oils and tiny particles move into the cup, and that shifts the experience immediately. The mouthfeel becomes thicker, sometimes nearly creamy, even without milk. Flavors can seem rounder and darker, and the finish may linger longer on the tongue. This is why the same beans can taste brighter and cleaner through paper, yet richer and fuller through metal. It isn't just flavor, it's texture. And texture shapes what your brain pays attention to. Many people enjoy metal-filtered coffee for comfort, especially in immersion brewers and certain reusable filter systems. Others prefer paper when they want crisp clarity. Neither is more correct. They are two different interpretations of the same roasted seed, like hearing a song through speakers versus headphones. Cold brew extracts slowly, often lowering perceived acidity and bite. Cold brew feels smooth because cold water moves through coffee chemistry at a different pace. Many of the sharp, bright sensations people associate with hot coffee show up less, while deeper notes like cocoa and toasted sweetness can take the lead. The long steep also pulls out plenty of soluble material, so the drink can be strong without tasting aggressive. It is a quiet kind of intensity. It also changes how aroma behaves. Because the drink is cold, fewer aromatic compounds rise into the air, so flavor can feel softer and more muted until it warms on your tongue. Cold brew concentrate adds another layer of flexibility. You can dilute it with water, add milk, or pour it over ice without losing the core character. Done well, it tastes like a different beverage, not just coffee served cold. It is a slow extraction that turns time into a flavor tool. Iced coffee and cold brew differ because one is brewed hot. Iced coffee starts with hot water, which pulls out aromas and bright notes quickly. Then the brew is cooled fast. That path tends to keep more of the lively, high-tone flavors people love in hot coffee. Even when it is poured over ice, cold brew takes the opposite route. It begins cold and stays cold, which often produces a smoother profile with less sharpness. The difference can be dramatic with the same beans. Iced coffee can taste crisp and vivid, while cold brew can taste round and chocolatey. The brewing choices also change how you manage dilution. Hot brewed coffee can get watery if I melt too much, so many people brew it stronger or chill it before serving. Cold brew is often concentrated from the start, so it can handle ice with less fuss. Two cold drinks, two distinct stories. Espresso is concentrated, but it often has less caffeine per serving. Espresso feels like a bolt because it is intense in flavor and texture. The shot is small, the aroma is bold, and the taste arrives fast. Caffeine, though, is not only about concentration, it is also about volume. A typical espresso serving is much smaller than a full mug of brewed coffee, so the total caffeine can end up lower, even if the drink tastes stronger. This surprises people because the sensory impact is huge.
Espresso also has a special kind of pace. You drink it quickly, and that can make the effect feel immediate. The ritual contributes too. The sound of grinding, the warm cup, the quick sip at a bar. All of it tells your brain, wake up.
Now, espresso is a reminder that flavor intensity and caffeine dose are not the same measurement. One is about how much is dissolved per sip. The other is about how much you drink in total. Drip coffee can carry more caffeine because people drink more volume. A standard drip cup looks ordinary, yet it can deliver a bigger caffeine load simply because it is a larger drink. Water has more time and more space to pull caffeine from grounds, and then you actually consume more liquid. That combination adds up. It also explains why people can feel fine after a single espresso, then feel wired after a large brewed coffee. The drink does not need to taste aggressive to be potent. Drip coffee can taste mellow, especially with a medium roast and a paper filter, yet the caffeine can still be significant. Serving size is the hidden variable that many labels do not make obvious. A cafe small might be much larger than what you pour at home, and refills quietly multiply the total. This is why caffeine conversations can get confusing. People compare drinks by style. Yet the real comparison should start with how much ends up in the cup. Caffeine peaks in blood within about an hour. For many people, caffeine does not act like a light switch. After you drink coffee, it is absorbed through the digestive system and enters the bloodstream, and the rise happens over time. For many people, levels tend to climb toward a peak within about an hour, which is why the full effect can arrive after you have finished the cup. The timing can shift with food, hydration, and individual biology. So, two people can drink together and feel the lift at different moments. This delayed peak also explains a common mistake. Someone drinks a second cup too soon because they think the first did nothing. Then both waves arrive close together. The body experiences that as a sudden surge. Understanding the arc can make coffee feel more predictable. It is not only what you drink. It is when you drink it and what your body is doing as it absorbs it. Coffee is a beverage, yet it behaves like a timeline. Your genes influence caffeine clearance, changing how long it keeps you alert. Two friends can share the same coffee and live in different worlds afterward. One feels focused and fine, the other is awake late into the night. A major reason is genetics. Enzymes in the liver break down caffeine, and the genes that shape those enzymes vary between people. Some bodies clear caffeine relatively quickly, others clear it slowly, which means the stimulating effect can linger far longer. This difference can shape lifelong habits. Quick metabolizers may drink coffee after dinner and sleep well. Slow metabolizers may need a morning-only rule. Genetics is not the only factor. Age, pregnancy, certain medications, and overall liver health can shift clearance too. Still, the genetic piece is a powerful clue for why advice feels inconsistent. When someone says coffee never bothers their sleep, they may be telling the truth about their biology. Your relationship with caffeine is partly written in your cells long before your first latte. Caffeine blocks adenosine receptors so tiredness signals feel quieter. As your day goes on, your brain builds sleep pressure. One molecule involved in that pressure is adenosine, which binds to receptors and helps create that heavy, ready-for-rest feeling. Caffeine fits into those receptors without activating them. So the signal that says you are getting tired is reduced. The important detail is that caffeine does not remove sleep pressure. It masks how strongly you feel it. This is why a crash can happen later, especially if you have been awake a long time. Once caffeine is metabolized, adenosine can bind again, and the tiredness that was waiting can return quickly. This also explains why coffee can feel so effective even before it feels energizing. It is not always adding energy. It is often lowering the perception of fatigue. Your mind feels clearer because one of the brakes has been lifted. The body is still the body, yet the dashboard warming light is dimmed. Coffee can affect sleep even when drunk early in the day because its half-life can be long. Caffeine has a half-life, which means it takes time for the body to reduce its level by half. For many adults, that half-life can stretch across several hours, and it can be longer for some people. This is why an afternoon cup can still be present at bedtime even if you feel calm. Sleep can become lighter, or it can take longer to fall asleep, or you may wake more easily. The tricky part is that you may not connect cause and effect, since the coffee was hours ago and the day felt normal. Timing is often more important than strength. A small coffee late can matter more than a stronger coffee early. People who say coffee does not affect their sleep may be judging by how fast they fall asleep. Yet, sleep quality can shift quietly. If you want coffee and good sleep, the simplest tool is an earlier cutoff time that matches your own body's pace. Coffee's bitterness comes from specific compounds, and roasting shifts which ones dominate. Bitterness in coffee is not one single taste. It is a chorus of compounds that rise and fall as heat reshapes the bean. Early in roasting, some bitter notes come from the bean's natural chemistry. Later, as roasting pushes deeper, new bitter compounds form, while others break down into different flavors. That is why bitterness can feel clean and cocoa-like in one cup, yet harsh and ashy in another. Brewing also decides how bitterness presents itself. A balanced extraction can let bitterness act like structure, the way dark chocolate supports sweetness. An unbalanced extraction can make bitterness feel sharp and lingering, especially when very fine particles dominate the brew. It helps to think of bitterness as a tool rather than a flaw. Roasters and brewers can aim for bitterness that tastes intentional, not accidental. When it is right, it gives coffee depth and contrast, and it makes sweetness more noticeable by comparison. Coffee's acidity is flavor brightness, not simply a low pH. When people say a coffee is acidic, they often mean it tastes bright and lively, like a squeeze of citrus or the snap of a crisp apple. That sensation is not the same as measuring acidity with a pH meter. Coffee can have a similar pH across many styles, yet taste wildly different in brightness. The difference lives in which acids are present, how they balance with sweetness, and how roasting and brewing present them. A bright cup can feel clean and refreshing, especially when sweetness arrives right after the sparkle. A poorly extracted cup can feel sour, which is a different experience. That sourness often comes from under-extraction, where sweetness and deeper flavors never fully enter the drink. This is why the same coffee can taste sharp one day and beautifully bright the next, depending on grind, water temperature, and time. Brightness is a flavor shape, and it can be one of coffee's most exciting signatures. The tongue senses sweetness and bitterness, but aroma carries most flavor. If you pinch your nose and take a sip of coffee, the drink can seem strangely plain. You still sense bitterness, sweetness, and acidity on the tongue, yet the specific identity of the coffee fades. That is because much of what we call flavor is aroma traveling up to the nose from the back of the mouth as you swallow. Coffee is especially rich in these aromatic signals, since roasting creates many volatile compounds that evaporate easily. This is why a coffee can taste like berries, nuts, or flowers without containing any of those things. Your brain is matching aroma patterns to memories. It is also why grind size matters beyond extraction. Grinding releases aroma quickly, and it is why whole beans smell quieter than fresh grounds. Brewing method plays a role too. Some methods trap aroma under foam or under a lid, while others let it rise immediately. In coffee, the nose is doing a huge share of the work, even when you think you are only tasting. Smell disappears with a cold, and coffee suddenly tastes strangely dull. A blocked nose does more than change breathing. It shuts down the main pathway that carries coffee's character. With reduced smell, coffee can seem flat, bitter, or watery, even if it is brewed perfectly. People often blame the beans, the water, or the brewer, yet the missing piece is sensory access. The tongue is still doing its job, so you can notice bitterness and a little acidity, but the vivid notes that make coffee feel alive are mostly aromatic. This can be a useful experiment even when you are healthy. Taste coffee, then hold your nose and taste again. The contrast can feel surprising. It shows how much of coffee is experienced through the air, not just through the liquid. It also explains why the aroma at the moment of brewing feels so intense. When you can smell fully, coffee becomes multidimensional. When you can't, it turns into a simpler drink. The cup itself hasn't changed, but your channel of information has. Milk alters coffee chemistry because its proteins bind to certain bitter molecules. Adding milk isn't just about creaminess. It changes what reaches your taste buds. Milk proteins can attach to compounds that create bitterness and astringency, making the coffee feel smoother and more rounded. Fat also shapes mouthfeel, giving the drink weight and softness that water alone can't provide. That's why a coffee that tastes powerful as espresso can feel balanced as a latte. The milk isn't merely diluting it, it's transforming it. Temperature matters too, since warm milk carries sweetness more clearly, while overheated milk can taste cooked and dull the cup's freshness. Different milks behave differently because protein and fat levels vary. So the same espresso can taste sharp with one choice and silky with another. This chemistry is part of coffee culture's charm. A single shot can become many drinks, each with its own texture and balance, simply because milk interacts with the compounds already present in the brew. Sugar can mask bitterness, but it also boosts perceived aroma. Sweetness does more than sweeten. It changes what you notice. When sugar is added, bitterness can feel lower, and that can open space for other flavors to step forward. Many people experience this as coffee suddenly smelling more fragrant, even though the aromatic compounds are the same. What changed is attention. The brain is no longer focused on bitter signals, so it can pick up subtler notes like cocoa, spice, or fruit. Sugar can also affect mouthfeel by making the liquid feel slightly fuller, which can make a coffee seem richer. The amount matters. A small touch can act like seasoning, while a lot can dominate and turn everything into dessert. Culture matters too. In some places, sweet coffee is a comfort tradition, not a compromise. The fascinating part is that sweetness is not only a taste, it is a perception shaper that can reframe the whole drink like changing the lighting in a room. Salt in tiny amounts can reduce bitterness by altering taste perception. Salt is famous for making food taste better, and coffee is no exception when used carefully. In very small amounts, salt can dampen the perception of bitterness, which can make a harsh cup feel smoother without making it taste salty. This is not magic, it is taste biology. Salt ions influence how signals are processed, and the balance between bitter and other tastes can shift.
It is similar to how a pinch of salt can make chocolate taste more chocolatey. The key is restraint. Too much salt ruins the cup and announces itself immediately. A tiny amount can act like a quiet editor, softening rough edges, so sweetness and aroma become easier to notice. Some people use this trick for over-extracted coffee, and some use it to make instant coffee more pleasant. It is also a reminder that coffee is a sensory experience, not just chemistry. Your tongue and brain are part of the recipe, and seasoning can guide what they hear. Coffee has antioxidants, but the amounts depend on roast and brew. Coffee is not only caffeine and aroma, it also carries a range of compounds that can act as antioxidants, including chlorogenic acids and other polyphenols. The interesting part is that roasting changes this landscape. Some antioxidants decrease as heat breaks them down, while other new compounds form that can also contribute antioxidant activity. Brewing choices matter too. Contact time, temperature, and filtration influence what ends up in the cup. A longer brew can pull more soluble compounds, while a paper filter can remove certain oily components. This does not turn coffee into a medicine, and it does not make every cup identical. It makes coffee a moving target shaped by agriculture, roasting, and brewing. For a listener, the wonder is that a familiar drink contains a hidden chemical library that shifts with craft. Two cups can taste different, and their antioxidant profiles can differ too, simply because of how they were made. Coffee is a beverage, yet it is also a chemistry story that keeps changing. Coffee contains oils called dipines, and filters can reduce them. Some of coffee's natural oils include deterrents such as cafes and kawil. These contribute to flavor and texture, and they're part of why unfiltered coffee can feel rich and substantial. The brewing method decides how much of these oils reach your cup.
Paper filters trap a significant portion, while metal filters and methods like French press allow more through. This difference is not just academic. It is one reason a paper-filtered brew can taste cleaner, and a French press can taste fuller and more coating. These oils also carry aroma, so they can change how long fragrance lingers after a sip. People often think of filters as a simple convenience, yet they act like a chemical date keeper. They decide which compounds travel onward and which stay behind with the grounds. It is another example of coffee's quiet complexity. A small equipment choice can change the drink's texture, taste balance, and even the chemical profile you consume. Instant coffee is brewed first, then dehydrated into crystals or powder. Instant coffee begins life as real brewed coffee, just made at an industrial scale, and then turned into something shelf-stable. Producers extract a strong liquid concentrated and remove the water so the flavor solids remain. Two common approaches are spray drying and freeze drying. Spray drying turns liquid into a mist inside hot air, and the droplets dry in flight. Freeze drying starts colder, and it protects more delicate aromas by removing ice under low pressure. Either way, the goal is the same. Make a product that dissolves quickly, travels easily, and tastes recognizably like coffee with no grinder or machine. It also solves a challenge coffee has always faced, which is speed. Instant coffee helped bring coffee into places where fresh brewing was hard. from remote work sites to late-night dorm rooms. One spoon can create a cup in seconds, and that convenience has shaped global coffee habits. Freeze-drying preserves aroma better because it avoids high heat. Freeze-drying starts by brewing coffee, then freezing it into a solid sheet or granules. From there, the ice is removed by turning it directly into vapor under low pressure. Because the process stays cold, many aromatic compounds are less likely to be damaged or driven off by heat. That matters because aroma is where coffee's personality lives. When a freeze-dried instant coffee smells more vivid than you expected, this is often why. The method is also slow and equipment-heavy, which is why freeze-dried instant tends to cost more than spray-dried. Yet it offers something that feels almost magical. It can capture a snapshot of brewed coffee and store it for later with surprisingly little loss. For travelers and busy mornings, it can feel like carrying a small piece of a cafe in your pocket. It also reminds you that coffee is not only agriculture and roasting, it is food science, using pressure and phase changes to protect flavor. Espresso was popularized by machines and engineering shaped cafe culture. Espresso is inseparable from the machine that makes it. Once engineers learned how to push hot water through compacted coffee using pressure, a new kind of drink became possible. Fast, concentrated, and repeatable. That speed changed cafe rhythm. Instead of waiting for a pot to finish, a bar could serve drink after drink on demand, each one made to order. Machines also created a new craft. Baristas began to think like technicians, watching flow, managing temperature, and tuning grind with precision. The cafe became a place where technology and hospitality met on the counter. Even the soundscape changed. Grinding, steaming, and the click of a portafilter became part of the atmosphere. Espresso machines did not simply improve coffee. They changed how people gathered, how long they stayed, and what they expected from a cup served in public. In many cities, the machine became a cultural symbol, a signal that coffee could be both quick and ceremonial. The word coffee traveled languages, reflecting its global journey. The name itself is a map. As coffee moved across regions, people shaped the sound to fit their own tongues, carrying a recognizable core while changing the edges. You can hear a family resemblance between words like tower, cove, calf, cafe, and coffee. Even though each language gives it a different rhythm, that similarity tells you something simple and profound. The drink spread through contact, trade, and conversation, not in isolation. A word only travels when people are using it with other people. The shifting pronunciation also shows how coffee became local. A borrowed word can become a native one attached to new rituals and new meanings. In one place, it signals a short, strong cup. In another, it points to a long, social visit. When you say the word today, you are echoing centuries of movement. The sound carries merchants, sailors, marketplaces, and kitchen tables. Coffee is global history tucked into 4 syllables. Coffee reached Europe through ports, then spread with new social rituals. Ports are where goods become habits. Bags of beans arrived alongside spices, textiles, and news, and curious drinkers turned a foreign product into a daily practice. In many European cities, coffee first lived in places where travelers and locals crossed paths, near docks, markets, and busy streets. From there it moved inland, carried by entrepreneurs who saw that people wanted more than a drink. They wanted a setting for it. Coffee invited a new kind of pause in the day, one that did not require a meal or a celebration. It could be a brief stop or a long conversation. Different cities built their own customs, from standing at a counter to lingering at a table. The ritual adapted to climate, class, and local taste. Sugar, milk, and pastry culture shifted alongside it. What began as cargo became routine. A port delivered beans. Then the city invented a new way to spend time. In some places, coffee was banned briefly because authorities feared gatherings. When people gather, ideas gather too. In certain times and places, leaders worried that coffee houses created space for criticism, rumor, and organizing. Coffee itself was not the only concern. The concern was the room it brought into existence, full of talk that could not be easily supervised. So bans appeared, sometimes framed as moral rules, sometimes as public order. They were often temporary because demand did not disappear. People found ways around restrictions, and the drink kept returning. Pulled back by habit and by the simple appeal of a warm cup in company. These bans are fascinating because they reveal coffee's social power. A beverage became politically interesting, not because it was rare, but because it was shared. When a government tries to regulate where people sit and speak, it is admitting that conversation matters. Coffee did not win by force. It won by being useful, pleasant, and hard to replace as a social glue. Coffee houses offered affordable warmth, making them early third places. A third place is neither home nor work. It is a spot where you can exist among others without having to host them or answer to them. Coffee houses became that for many people because they offered light, heat, and a reason to stay for the price of a cup. For someone living in a crowded room or working long hours that mattered, it created breathing room in the day. You could read, write, listen, or simply be near other humans. This function is easy to overlook if you think cafes are only about taste. They are also about shelter and permission. Even today, a cafe can feel like a small public living room with its own unspoken rules and rhythms. The drink is the ticket, but the true product is space. That is why coffee houses appear in so many cities across so many cultures. They solve the basic human problem, which is where to go when you do not want to be alone and you do not want to perform. Some of the first stock discussions happened over coffee, not in offices. Early finance needed trust, and trust often grows in regular meeting places. Coffee houses provided a dependable setting where merchants could compare shipping reports, prices, and risk face to face. A public room made private promises feel safer because reputations were on display. If someone spoke carelessly, the room remembered. If someone proved reliable, the room amplified it. This is one way commerce becomes social. Information moved by conversation, not by screens. And coffee kept people alert enough to track details. The drink also made long discussions more comfortable, since it offered a reason to sit and continue. Over time, networks formed. People knew where to find the right crowd for certain kinds of deals. This does not mean coffee houses invented finance, but they helped it organize itself in public. It is a striking thought. A modern trading world has roots in ordinary cups and ordinary tables, where talk turned into numbers and numbers turned into decisions. Coffee fueled long work shifts, changing labor patterns across centuries. Coffee's role in work is partly chemical and partly cultural. A warm, caffeinated drink makes it easier to stay focused, and it offers a structured break that can fit into a busy schedule. As coffee became widely available, it helped support longer hours in settings where alertness mattered.
from workshops to offices. It also reshaped what a break looked like. Instead of stopping only for full meals, people could pause briefly, have a drink, and return to their work. That rhythm spread through factories, schools, and later corporate offices. Coffee became a way to manage time, not just to enjoy it. It also turned into a marker of identity.
The morning cup marked the beginning of the day. The afternoon cup signaled endurance. This shift has a human dimension. It ties coffee to ambition, pressure, and productivity. When you hold a cup on a weekday morning, you're holding a small piece of industrial and social history, shaped by the urge to keep going. Coffee culture varies everywhere, from tiny cups to oversized mugs. The same seed becomes wildly different traditions. In some places, coffee is served in small, intense portions, meant to be finished quickly. In others, it arrives as a large drink, meant to last through a commute or a meeting. The difference isn't only size, it's attitude. Some cultures treat coffee as a short ritual with precise rules. Others treat it as a flexible companion that can be customized endlessly. Serving style follows local life. Try matters, since hot places often favor iced formats, and cooler places may lean into warmth. Food traditions matter too, since coffee pairs with pastries in one region and with savory snacks in another. Even social expectations shift. One cafe invites conversation with strangers, while another expects privacy and headphones. This diversity is one reason coffee stays interesting. It is not one global drink. It is 1,000 local versions of the same idea, shaped by history, taste, and daily rhythm. Turkish coffee keeps grounds in the cup, creating a thick texture. This style is brewed without filtering, so the coffee never fully separates from the liquid. Finally, ground coffee is heated in water, often with sugar added during brewing, and then poured so the ground settled to the bottom. That settling is part of the experience. The first sips can feel velvety and dense, while the last sips are left untouched, since the grounds form a soft layer like silt in a riverbed. Because nothing is filtered out, the drink carries more suspended particles, which to make flavors feel intense and lingering. The method also rewards attention to heat. If it boils too hard, it can taste rough. If it is warmed patiently, it can taste rounded and aromatic. Turkish coffee is a reminder that brewing is not only extraction, it is also texture, tradition, and the decision to keep the coffee present all the way to the end. Ethiopian coffee ceremonies emphasize roasting and sharing, not rushing the drink. In many Ethiopian homes, coffee is not treated like a quick beverage. It is treated like an event that creates togetherness. Green beans are often roasted in the room, so the smell becomes part of the gathering, and everyone shares that first wave of aroma. The roasted beans are then ground and brewed, and the coffee is served in small cups as conversation continues. What makes the ceremony fascinating is its pace. It asks people to stay, to be present, and to let the drink be a reason for connection, rather than a tool for productivity. The steps also keep coffee close to its origin. Since Ethiopia is widely recognized as the birthplace of Coffea Arabica, in that sense, the ceremony feels like a living bridge between past and present. You can taste coffee, but you can also feel the social design around it. Built to turn an everyday plant into a shared moment. Italian espresso bars favor quick-standing sips, not lingering. In much of Italy, espresso culture is built for speed and rhythm. People often step up to the bar, order, drink, and move on, all within a few minutes. Standing is part of the design. It keeps the cafe as a flow of brief encounters rather than a room full of long stays.
This shapes the drink itself. The espresso is served hot, small, and ready to be taken in a focused way, often with a quick glass of water alongside it.
The barista becomes a steady presence, and regulars build a relationship through repetition rather than long conversations. There is also a democratic feel. A short stop at the bar can fit into almost any day, which helps espresso become a shared daily ritual across different kinds of people. It is coffee as punctuation, a pause, a reset, then back into the street with a clearer mind. Scandinavian light roasts highlight acidity, often paired with slow conversation. In many Scandinavian coffee scenes, lighter roasting is celebrated because it keeps brightness and delicate aromatics in clear view. The cup can feel crisp, sometimes tea-like, and it invites you to notice small differences rather than big intensity. This flips a social style that often values time spent together without hurry. Coffee becomes something you return to over a long chat, letting it cool and change as you sip. Cooler temperatures can reveal sweetness in a different way, and bright notes can feel more precise when the cup is not piping hot. These coffees also tend to reward careful brewing, since lighter roasts can be less forgiving if water is too cool or contact time is too short. When it works, the experience can feel surprisingly elegant. It can challenge the idea that coffee should always taste dark and heavy. Instead, it tastes like clarity, like a bright window in winter, and it makes conversation feel a little more awake. Vietnamese coffee often uses Robusta, balanced with sweetened condensed milk. Vietnam is one of the world's major coffee producers, and Robusta plays a central role in many local drinks. Robusta can bring strong bitterness and deep body, which makes it a natural match for sweetened condensed milk. That milk is thick, sugary, and shelf-stable, and it creates a drink that is both bold and dessert-like. The balance is the point. Bitter meets sweet, heavy meets silky, and the result can feel intensely satisfying, especially over ice in hot weather. The brewing method often uses a small metal drip filter called a fin, which allows coffee to drip slowly into the glass. That slow drip builds anticipation, and it concentrates flavor before it meets the milk. Vietnamese coffee shows how a region can turn available ingredients into a signature ritual. It is not trying to mimic espresso or pour-over culture. It is its own solution to climate, history, and taste. And it makes Robusta feel proud rather than second best. Coffee cocktails exist because caffeine and alcohol interact in noticeable ways. Coffee and alcohol have been paired in many cultures because the combination creates a distinct experience. Alcohol can relax the body and soften social edges. Caffeine can sharpen attention and reduce the feeling of fatigue. Together, they can make a person feel awake and festive at the same time, which is why coffee cocktails show up after dinner, at celebrations, and in nightlife settings. The flavor pairing matters too. Coffee brings bitterness, roast, and deep aroma, which can balance sweet lures and creamy ingredients. It can also complement darker spirits that carry caramel and vanilla notes from aging. Drinks like Irish coffee became famous because they feel both warming and bright, like dessert with a pulse. There is also an important caution. Feeling less tired is not the same as being less impaired, and caffeine can mask sleepiness without reducing alcohol's effects on coordination and judgment. Coffee cocktails are fascinating because they are as much about perception as taste, and they show how two powerful substances can reshape the mood of a room.
coffee flavors can echo fruit because beans share compounds with berries. It can sound impossible that coffee might remind you of blueberries, strawberries, or citrus. Yet, chemistry makes it plausible. Coffee and fruits can share aromatic compounds, which means your nose can recognize familiar patterns even when the source is different. Those compounds can be highlighted by growing conditions, processing choices, and roasting style. A lightly roasted coffee from a high elevation region might carry aromas that your brain files under fruit, even though you are drinking a roasted seed. This is why tasting notes can feel surprisingly specific, and also why they can vary from person to person. You are not tasting literal berries. You are detecting overlapping aromatic signatures and matching them to memory. Processing can intensify this effect, especially when fruit sugars and fermentation contribute to aromatic development.
The result can be a cup that feels vivid and unexpected, like discovering a hidden connection between two foods you never thought belonged in the same sentence. It is one of coffee's most delightful tricks, and it begins in the invisible world of molecules. Coffee is botanically related to gardinas, sharing a family tree. If coffee seems like a world of its own, it helps to remember it has relatives. Coffee belongs to a large plant family called Rubiae, and one of the best-known members of that family is the gardenia. That connection is more than trivia. It hints at why coffee can produce such expressive aromas, since many plants in this family are skilled at making fragrant molecules. It also reminds you that coffee is not an industrial invention. It is a flowering plant with evolutionary cousins that live in gardens and hedges. When coffee blooms, those white flowers can carry a sweet scent that surprises people who only know the roasted bean. That perfume is part of its botanical heritage. The next time you smell coffee brewing, you can imagine the wider family of plants that have been perfecting fragrance for millions of years, each in its own way, under sun and rain. Coffee plants can mutate, creating new varieties with distinct cup profiles. Coffee varieties are not only created by breeding programs. Sometimes nature slips a new page into the story. A mutation can appear as an unusual leaf shape, a different growth habit, or cherries that mature in a slightly new way. Farmers may notice a tree that stands out in the field, then propagate it. If the plant performs well over time, that single difference can become a named variety with its own reputation. The fascinating part is that a small genetic change can ripple into taste. One variety might lean floral and light. Another might feel more syrupy or spiced. These differences are not guaranteed in every cup, yet they can be striking when farming and roasting are careful. Mutations are also a reminder that coffee is alive and still evolving, even as it becomes a global product. Each new variety is a living experiment. It is a chance for the plant to respond to local pressures, and a chance for humans to discover a flavor nobody had tasted before. Some varieties resist leaf rust, a disease that can devastate farms. Leaf rust is one of the most feared threats in coffee-growing regions. It spreads through spores. It marks leaves with powdery orange patches, and it can weaken a plant until yields collapse. For farmers, it can mean a year of work with little to show for it. Plant breeders and producers have responded by developing and adopting varieties with stronger resistance. That resistance is not only about saving crops, it can reduce the need for chemical controls and make farming more stable in regions where resources are limited. Yet, there is tension here too. A rust-resistant variety also needs to taste good, or the market will not reward the change. So the work becomes a balancing act between survival and quality. When you drink coffee from a farm that has endured rust pressure, you are tasting a crop that is not just grown, it is defended, adapted, and fought for season after season. Climate change threatens coffee zones, pushing suitable regions upslip. Coffee is sensitive to temperature and rainfall timing. When average temperatures rise and weather becomes less predictable, some regions become harder places to grow high-quality coffee. Heat stress can reduce flowering success, pests can expand into new areas, and drought or intense rain can arrive at the wrong moment. Many projections point toward a shift in where coffee can thrive, often toward higher elevations, where conditions remain cooler. That can sound simple, but it is not. Mountains have limited space. Land use is complex. Farms cannot always move, and communities are tied to place. This is why climate adaptation in coffee is urgent and creative. Farmers experiment with shade systems, new varieties, irrigation strategies, and different harvest timing. For drinkers, it means coffee is not only a flavor story, it is a climate story. Every cup links to landscapes that are being rewritten by temperature and rain. And the future of coffee depends on how well people can adjust without losing their livelihoods. Farmers use selective picking because unripe cherries taste sharply astringent. Astringency is that drying, puckering sensation that can make a cup feel rough. In coffee, it often comes from cherries that were picked before they were ready. Unripe fruit can carry harsher compounds and less developed sweetness, and that imbalance can survive every later step. This is why selective picking matters. Skilled pickers choose cherries by color and feel, and they leave greener fruit behind for later passes. That decision can be the difference between a cup that tastes sweet and clear and a cup that tastes tight and scratchy on the tongue. Selective picking is also a labor story. It takes training, time, and careful management. It costs more, and it asks more of everyone involved. Yet, it is one of the most direct ways a farm can improve quality, since it starts with choosing the right raw material. When you taste a coffee that feels smooth and complete, selective picking is often one of the hidden reasons. Coffee grading examines defects because one bad bean can taint a badge. Before coffee reaches a roaster, it is usually graded and sorted to remove defects. A defect can be a bean that was damaged by insects, fermented improperly, dried unevenly, or broken in processing. Some defects are obvious. Others are subtle until heat reveals them. The reason grading matters is that coffee is brewed as a group. One defective bean roasted in a batch can contribute unpleasant flavors that spread through the cup, especially when the defect has a strong taste, like sour fermentation or moldy mustiness. Sorting happens in layers. There is visual inspection, there is density sorting, there are machines that separate by color, and there are still human hands that catch what machines miss. It is meticulous work, and it protects the drinker from surprises. It also protects the farmer's effort. A farm can do many things right, yet a few defects can blur the whole result. Grading is quality control, but it is also respect for the chain of work that brought the coffee this far. Mycotoxin risk drops with good drying, storage, and quality control. Coffee is an agricultural product, so it can face risks from molds if conditions are wrong. Mycotoxins are compound some molds can produce, and they are more likely when coffee stays too wet for too long or is stored in damp, warm spaces. The reassuring part is that good practices reduce this risk substantially. Proper drying lowers moisture to safer levels. Clean storage keeps beans from reabsorbing humidity. Sorting and inspection remove visibly damaged beans that are more prone to problems. Many producers, exporters, and importers also rely on testing and quality systems, especially in regulated markets. This is why the unglamorous steps matter. Drying beds, moisture checks, warehouse conditions, and careful packaging all protect both flavor and safety. It is another reminder that coffee quality is not only taste, it is process discipline. When those systems function well, you never really notice them. You simply notice that your coffee tastes clean and that your cup feels reliable. Coffee grounds can enrich soil, but they are not a complete fertilizer. Used grounds often seem like they should be perfect for gardens. They smell rich and earthy, they look like compost, and they contain organic matter that soil can use. When mixed into compost or applied thoughtfully, grounds can improve soil structure and help support microbial life. Still, they are not a full plant food on their own. They don't supply every nutrient in the proper balance, and when applied too thickly, they can clump, slowing water movement and limiting air in the soil. They can also shift soil conditions in ways that depend on context, especially when a gardener uses them repeatedly in one area. The best approach treats grounds as one ingredient among many. Combine them with leaves, kitchen scraps, and other compost materials, and let the pile transform everything into a stable soil amendment. It is satisfying to think that a morning drink can return to the earth, but like most natural cycles, it works best with balance. Blends can taste consistent year-round, smoothing seasonal crop differences. Coffee is harvested in waves across the world, and no two harvests are identical. Rain shifts, temperatures vary, and each crop year brings small changes in sweetness and brightness. A blend can act like a steady anchor. Roasters combine coffees that complement each other, so the final cup keeps a familiar profile even when one component changes. One coffee might bring body and depth, another might bring lift and aroma, a third might add a smooth finish that holds everything together. This is why many cafes build their identity around a house blend, especially for milk drinks where balance matters more than delicate detail. Blending is also a creative act. It is closer to composing than to copying, and it requires tasting, patience, and adjustment. A great blend is not hiding anything. It is aiming for harmony. It gives you a reliable cup that still comes from changing seasons without making you chase those changes every week. Fair trade aims to improve terms, but models and impacts vary. At its heart, it is an attempt to make trade less punishing for farmers, especially when market prices fall or when buyers hold too much power. Many fair trade systems involve standards, audits, and a premium intended to support producers and community projects. Often, coffee is sold through cooperatives, which can strengthen bargaining and help farmers share resources. Yet, results are not identical everywhere. Certification rules differ. Participation costs money, and not all coffee from a certified farm is sold under the label. Some buyers pay more than fair trade without using the mark through direct relationships or other sustainability programs. The important idea is that coffee is not just flavor. It is also a chain of agreements. Fair trade is one approach to improving that chain, and it works best when it is paired with transparency, long-term commitment, and real attention to how money and risk move through the system. Specialty coffee relies on cupping, a standardized tasting and scoring method. Cupping is a shared language for quality, so people across countries can discuss a coffee with some consistency. The setup is simple, yet disciplined. Coffee is ground, placed in bowls, and hot water is poured over it. After a set time, tasters break the floating crust and smell the burst of aroma. Then they taste repeatedly as the coffee cools, since temperature changes what you notice. Judges pay attention to fragrance, clarity, sweetness, balance, and aftertaste. They also watch for defects that can dull or distort flavor. Cupping matters because it creates calibration. A farmer, a buyer, and a roaster can all taste the same coffee and agree on what it is, even if they have different preferences. It is also a moment of discovery. One table can hold coffees from many regions, and in a single session, you can taste how processing and variety show up in the cup. Cupping uses slurping to spread liquid, boosting aroma perception. It can sound impolite, yet it is a technique with a clear purpose. When you slurp, you pull coffee and air together, and that turns the liquid into a fine spray across the tongue and the roof of the mouth. More surface contact means more flavor perception. The added air also helps aromatic compounds travel upward into the nose, through the back of the throat, which is where much of coffee's detail is experienced. Slurping also cools the liquid slightly, which makes it possible to taste safely while still capturing warm aromas. In a cupping room, the sound is constant because tasters are trying to be fair to every sample. They want the same delivery, the same intensity, and the same chance to notice subtle differences. It is a reminder that tasting is not passive. It is a controlled action that changes what you can detect, like adjusting focus on a camera. Coffee tasting uses a flavor wheel, mapping common sensory notes. Coffee can be hard to describe without falling back on vague words like strong or smooth. A flavor wheel gives structure. It starts with broad categories like fruity, floral, spicy, or nutty. Then, it branches into more specific descriptions that help people communicate. This matters in real life. Farmers and roasters use shared terms to discuss quality and to track how changes in processing or roasting affect the cup. Baristas use it to guide customers toward coffees they might enjoy. It also trains attention. When you learn a vocabulary, you start noticing more the way a musician hears harmonies once they know what to listen for. The wheel does not force everyone to taste the same thing. It gives a set of reference points so conversations become clearer. It can also make coffee more fun. A cup becomes a small puzzle. You taste, you compare, you choose words, and the drink turns into an experience you can actually name. Coffee can taste salty from water issues, not from the beans. If a cup tastes oddly briny, it can be tempting to blame the roast or the cafe. Sometimes, the real cause is the water. High sodium in the local supply, a water softener that is not tuned well, or certain mineral imbalances can create a salty impression. Even plumbing and storage can play a role, especially if water picks up tastes on its way to the kettle. Saltiness can also show up when extraction is uneven because the balance of flavors shifts and strange notes become easier to notice. This is why troubleshooting coffee often starts with tasting the water on its own. If the water tastes off, coffee will magnify it. The comforting part is that the fix can be simple. Better filtration, different water, or a small change in maintenance can bring the coffee back to life. A salty cup is often not a mystery of beans. It is a clue about the unseen ingredient. Over-extraction tastes drying and bitter, while under-extraction tastes sour and thin. Brewing is a timed release. Different compounds leave the grounds at different moments, and the cup changes as extraction progresses. If you pull too much, the later compounds can dominate, and the coffee can feel astringent, rough, and overly bitter. If you pull too little, The early acids arrive without enough sweetness and depth to support them, and the cup can feel sharp, watery, or hollow. The useful skill is diagnosis. A sour cup often improves with a finer grind, warmer water, or a little more contact time. A harsh, drying cup often improves with a coarser grind, slightly cooler water, or a shorter brew. Small adjustments matter because coffee responds quickly. This is also why consistent recipes are calming. When you control dose, grind, and time, you can move the result with intention. Extraction is not luck. It is a set of levers, and your palate tells you which direction to pull. A clean cup begins with clean equipment because oils go rancid fast. Coffee leaves behind oils and fine particles on anything it touches, from grinder burrs to basket walls to calves. Those residues do not stay fresh. Over time, they oxidize and turn stale, and that staleness can creep into every cup like a background haze. It can make coffee taste dull, cardboard-like, or oddly bitter, even when the beans are excellent. Grinders are especially important, since old oils can coat new grounds before they even hit water. Brewers matter too, since warm surfaces accelerate unwanted changes. The fix is not dramatic. It is regular cleaning with methods that match the equipment, plus rinsing well, so no cleaner taste remains. This is one of the most overlooked upgrades in home coffee, and it costs almost nothing compared to new gear. Clean equipment protects aroma. It keeps sweetness clear. It also makes your brewing more predictable, since yesterday's residue is no longer rewriting today's cup. Every cup is a tiny chemistry lab brewed by time and temperature. When you brew coffee, you are running an extraction experiment with dozens of variables. Heat changes solubility. Time changes how far the water can travel into particles. Agitation changes how quickly fresh water reaches the grounds. Even the shape of the brewer changes flow, which changes what dissolves and when. This is why two cups made from the same beans can taste like different drinks. One might sparkle and feel sweet. Another might feel dull or sharp. The chemistry is not abstract. It happens in your hands. You choose the grind. You choose how long the water stays. You choose how hot it is and how prickly it moves. Then your senses measure the result, sip by sip. The wonder is that the process is both complex and accessible. You don't need a lab coat to guide it. All you need is attention and a willingness to adjust. Coffee rewards curiosity because it is chemistry you can taste immediately, within the space of a single mug. As we reach the end of this journey through coffee, you can let these ideas settle, like grounds resting at the bottom of a cup. We traveled from flowering trees on mountainsides to cherries that ripen in their own time. We followed coffee through harvest decisions, through washing and drying, through the crackle of roasting, and into the quiet physics of brewing, where grind, water, and heat determine what the cup becomes. We listened to how aroma leads the experience long before a sip ever touches the tongue. We noticed how paper can make a brew feel clean, and how metal can make it feel rich. We stepped into cafes and kitchens around the world, where coffee becomes a quick pause at a counter, a slow ritual shared with others, or a cool glass over ice on a warm day. And through it all, the same simple seed kept transforming, shaped by climate, craft, and time. If you've enjoyed drifting through these sleepy science stories, you can support the channel in a small way. A like, a subscription, or a quiet comment helps this corner of the internet stay warm and welcoming. And if you happen to still be awake, there should be another video waiting for you on the screen. Now, you can choose it like one last cup or save it for another night. For now, you have nothing left to do. Let your jaw loosen. Let your shoulders soften. Let your breathing find its own slow rhythm in and out. If thoughts appear, you do not need to follow them. Even let them pass like steam fading from a mug. Sleep well, and good night.